This week's special guest, Joe Siddall, former Major League catcher, Blue Jays broadcaster. We'll talk about his career and we'll size up the Jays' chances for 2022. Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show coming up. Our special guest today is a Windsor native, high school standout catcher. At college, he went to Central Michigan University, played for the Chippewas. He was signed by the Montreal Expos in 1987, played 13 seasons of pro baseball, made his major league debut with the Expos in 1993, also played for the Expos, the Florida Marlins, and the Detroit Tigers. Hired as a Jays radio broadcaster in 2014, moved to the Jays TV broadcast in 2018, one of the great studio analysts in the game. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Siddall in the house. Joe, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Joe.
I tell you, we were talking just off camera before we started about growing up in Windsor and becoming a Tigers fan. What turned you on to the Tigers?
Geographically, of course, my house is about 10 minutes from the Ambassador Bridge. And then, of course, in those days, Tiger Stadium was just 5 minutes across the border. So my older brothers used to take us to games all the time and basically grew up watching the Tigers, but more importantly, watching them live. And then as I grew a little bit older, got into my high school years, I remember sneaking out with my buddies and we'd catch the home opener. Or we'd get the tickets in the bleachers, straightaway center field. If you remember Tiger Stadium, 440 feet with the flagpole on the field. And we'd sit up in those bleachers because they were the cheap seats. They were $2 or $3, I think, at the time. But I grew up in that era watching Alan Trammell and Lou Whitaker turn double plays. Lance Parrish was my guy behind the plate because I grew up to be a catcher. Gibby and the whole crew, Jack Morris on the mound. And it kind of came full circle when I got an opportunity to help out the Tigers with their batting practice after my playing career. And then Trammell was named manager and brought on some of those guys as coaches. So it was like a dream come true all over again. A lot of fun. And to this day, a lot of my family and friends here in Windsor are Tigers fans for that reason, because they're so close to a new, beautiful ballpark in Comerica.
Right. It is gorgeous over there. So you grew up as a Tigers. Was it always going to be baseball? And was it always going to be a catcher for Joe Siddall?
Well, in terms of the catcher, yes. Ironically, and even throughout my entire career, most of the catchers that I played with were not catchers as kids. They did other things. They were probably just great athletes and played other positions. But right from the time I started baseball, I was probably 7 or 8 years old, and I was behind the plate. And I would also pitch a bit. And I had a brother, Jim, 2 years older than me. And he would pitch like 4 innings, I would catch him, and then I would pitch the last 3 innings, and he would catch me. So it was quite the tandem we had going on. So I did love catching from the very start of playing baseball in general. But no, I played all sports as a kid, and I continue to this day, encourage kids to do the same. I loved playing all the sports outside. I grew up not too far from Central Park. It's in South Windsor where I played all my youth baseball. But there's tennis courts. There are tennis courts there where we play home run derby. So we'd go over in the afternoon at noon, and we play home run derby all afternoon to like 4 o'clock, where you had home plate over by the pool. Your buddies would pitch to you, and all it was a home run, and you had to hit it into the tennis courts. Now, the people in the tennis courts didn't like that too much, but it was motivation to try to work on that swing and try to launch away. And I think, too, we would play all afternoon, then we'd ride our bikes home, grab some dinner, put our spikes over our handlebars and our glove on the other side of the handlebar, and we'd ride our bike back to Central Park for a game at 6 o'clock. Like, that's what we did when we were kids. We also called what we called strikeout against the school wall, where you paint the box on the wall. You know, everybody has different names. We had a church right behind my house and had a huge, huge slanted roof. And of course, that was the home run. You hit it over the bushes on their lawn, it was a double. So we made up all the rules. So that's baseball. But at the same time, we played football in the yard. We played basketball all through my elementary school days, soccer, everything, pretty well played everything. Now, once I got to high school, I'd have to confess that I still didn't narrow it down to one sport. I played football in the fall. Played basketball in the winter. As soon as football ended, I was in the gym trying out for the basketball team. And then as soon as basketball ended, I was out on the backfield and trying out for the baseball team. So it was 3 sports in high school. And then somehow after my football career or high school career, I was offered a football scholarship to head over to Michigan, and I accepted.
So you went to Michigan on a football scholarship.
Went to Central Michigan University. We had, I'll never forget the day. Again, talking about playing other sports, I wasn't aspiring to get a football scholarship. I wasn't trying to sign to play professional baseball. I was just playing sports because I love them. And we know the era is a little bit different now. But I remember being back on our football field, a practice field at Assumption High School where I went. And my high school football coach was Jeff Owen. And it was toward the end of the season. And he came up to me and he said, "What would you think about going over to play football at college in Michigan?" And I kind of looked at him like, I was just assuming I was going to go to the University of Windsor, and Gino Fracas was the legendary coach there with him, and that's what I planned on doing. And sure enough, one thing leads to another, one conversation leads to another. Central Michigan University football coach and recruiting coordinator contacts me, and no sooner are they over at my house and having dinner and talking to my parents about how this all works. And it took me a little bit of time, but I accepted it didn't take too long, but I was just enamored by it. I was in disbelief, but I was offered a full ride football scholarship. So, and then wouldn't you know it, I ended up playing a professional baseball career. So funny how it works.
So how did you make the switch? So you're at Central Michigan on a football scholarship. How did you make the switch to baseball, or did you go there with the intention right away of being a two-sport athlete?
I was hoping to play baseball at Central Michigan. They had a good baseball program, and I thought maybe when spring rolled around, I could go and do that. But because it was a full ride football scholarship, and when spring rolls around, there is spring football, and it's the entire month of April. So you're pretty committed. And I was quarterback. So being a young quarterback, there's still lots to learn. And we had what was called the maroon and gold game. I was the quarterback on one team. The other team's quarterback was a guy a year older than me. So he was redshirted, but then he was a sophomore. So he was a year ahead of me. The quarterback the previous year was a senior graduating. So it was going to be between the two of us, probably for the starting spot in the following fall. So game went okay, whatever. I thought it played okay. Went home in the summer and played baseball just as I always had growing up. And for me, it was with the Windsor Selects here in Windsor. And it was like late July, and I got a call from a local Montreal Expos scout. They were hosting one of those camps that they do, and asked me to come out and if I wanted to bring a few buddies. And again, I thought nothing of it. I just thought, sure, something to do. Yeah, we'll go out in the afternoon, couple day camp. So we went. Well, after the 2 days, normally what they do is they maybe invite one or two people from the camp, these camps that they have all over the country, and they bring them to the Big O in Montreal Olympic Stadium to have a final camp, and then maybe they sign one or two players. Well, they kind of expedited the process. I think they knew my situation going back to school. I was due to go back to school mid-August. Back to 2 days were starting up practices and then classes. And here they are offering me a professional baseball contract. And I remember being naive saying, well, no, I can't. I'm going back to school in a couple of weeks. They're like, no, I think we need to speak with your parents and explain how this works. So I had to think about it for a little while. And I probably took a good week just to kind of ponder it, talk to my parents, maybe to some people around that thought maybe could provide some insight. And it wasn't easy because I was giving up a full ride football scholarship for 4 years. Because I was redshirted, it was going to be 5 years, but I accepted. And I think to this day, I still remember back thinking, this may be my only opportunity to play professional baseball. I was hoping to play in college, but I didn't know how that would go. Maybe later on, my junior year, I would have been able to play, but who knows how that would have went. And this is before Canadians had to go through the draft, remember. So this is 1987. And I think it was 90 or 91, a little bit later, that then Canadians had to go through the draft. So I could just sign as an amateur free agent. So I did. Unfortunately, it was 2 weeks before I was supposed to go back to school and to start up with football as competing for the starting quarterback job. So you can imagine what the next steps were. I had to call the coaches there to tell them that I made this decision. I'm not coming back. And you can imagine how that went.
Right. No, well, any regrets about that decision looking back?
Zero. Yeah. It's funny you say that. A lot of people ask me, any regrets? Zero. Absolutely not. Would you do it differently? Probably. Because I continue to encourage kids to get their education. And I almost feel like going that route, things kind of can fall into place. I didn't think, and I played with a lot of players in my professional baseball career. I had the opportunity when I finished my career to go back and finish my education. It's just something that I always wanted to do. It's kind of that unfinished business in my head that I just something I started and didn't complete. And my wife is a physician and she has her career. And I wanted to make sure that our kids knew that dad wasn't just some jock, that education was indeed important. And I thought that hopefully would set a pretty good example for them. So it was just something, yeah, I wanted to do, and that kind of fulfilled that cup for me. And again, it didn't go well when I had to let all the coaches know, because I remember calling the head coach to tell him, and he was basically telling me what a mistake I was making and how the chances of making it in baseball are slim and none, and how you'll never get your education, and went on and on for 15 or 20 minutes. And then with my positions coach, same thing. And then they put me on the phone with the athletic director of the university. So you can imagine, as I think 19-year-old,
Oh, wow.
I was just like sweating bullets and my hands were shaking, and I almost wanted to say, I'm not calling to ask your opinions. I'm calling to tell you that I've made my decision. So
Yeah.
it did not go well at all, and I'm sure now those people are all very proud of what happened in my career path and all. But so I felt selfish. I think that's probably, when you say regrets, the worst part about it for me was I felt like I was being very selfish, that I was only thinking about myself. And really, I probably was, right? But at the same time, I almost tell kids today too, it wasn't my personality, it wasn't my character, but sometimes you got to look out for yourself, because other people don't necessarily have your best interests in place. Maybe it's their program, maybe it's their situation. So that's the part that probably was the most uncomfortable for me. And wouldn't you know it, it ended up leads to a baseball career and then a broadcasting career.
Well, it did work out pretty good, Joe. When your comment about taking care of yourself, if we don't take care of ourselves, who's going to take care of us? And if we rely on other people to take care of us, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. So, I mean, the fact that I think that's a good lesson for all of us to learn is that at some point, we got to be there for ourselves. And if we're not, we can't rely on everybody to always be there for us. So that was great. So was there anything special about being signed by the Expos? The fact that they're a Canadian team and you're a Canadian guy, was there kind of a feeling you had about that?
Well, first and foremost, just getting signed or offered a pro contract by any team was pretty awesome. And that was pretty cool. Again, something that just blindsided me. I had no idea. Like I said, this was this local camp, and obviously I had a good couple of days at the camp, but the last thing I was thinking is that they're going to offer me a professional baseball contract. But extra special that it was the Montreal Expos, absolutely, no question. I did do some things with the Blue Jays earlier. I think it was about a 17-year-old. I played in a Canadian Championship tournament, and they brought me to Exhibition Stadium to watch me catch a little bit and throw and take some batting practice. So that was a pretty cool experience. So I had done things. I had been exposed a little bit, but not near what we see in today's day and age, and all the perfect game and all these different camps and all the different showcases that kids are exposed to. And of course, a lot of it is money driven. But when I look back, I was so naive. And I think that was the best part of it, because I never went to school and played sports to try to get a scholarship or play any sport to try to play professionally. I continue to this day to say to all the kids I coached, I said it was an accident. Like this wasn't supposed to happen. It was crazy. And to this day, I still say there were kids as good as I was at baseball in this area. For some reason, they liked what I did, and I got an opportunity. I look back now, and as you guys probably know, like baseball in the city of Windsor is kind of the hotbed in Ontario and in Canada. It has been for many, many years. And there are a lot of good players that have come out of the city. And for me to get that opportunity, I just, wow, grateful.
So it wasn't exactly you weren't rocketed into the majors from signing as a pro. Tell us about that journey, and what happened to you along the way, and what were the keys for you to finally making it to the majors?
It was a journey, all right. And if you look at the stats page, because unfortunately the internet tells everything now, and I can't hide my offensive stats, but you'll notice that I was a defensive player. Catching was my strength, and that's what got me to the big leagues, though. And I knew that all along throughout my entire minor league career. And you'll hear players talk about it as a grind, and you mentioned a journey, and it is, because although conditions are probably getting better, we're hearing more and more about that more recently in recent years. You're playing a lot of bus rides, a lot of through the night. You're arriving places at 6 a.m. You go sleep for a few hours, you're heading to the ballpark. So the conditions were horrible. The eating, everything was horrible about it, except the experience itself. And I still, to this day, and many guys that I played with in the minor leagues, even when you get to the big leagues, you always look back fondly on those experiences because talk about camaraderie and teamwork. I mean, these are guys that you are with for 6 months or 5 months at least in spring training. And the biggest part for me was my journey is I was a left-handed hitting catcher. So all I kept hearing was, oh, left-handed hitting catcher, the quickest way to the big leagues, good defensive catcher, bats left-handed, just got to hit a little bit. And then, well, I guess I didn't hit a little bit. I just hit a tiny bit, but I got there. And the turning point for me for sure was 1990. I played in Class A West Palm Beach. It was the Florida State League. My manager with the West Palm Beach Expos was Felipe Alou. And to this day, I don't know why or how he was named manager of that club, but it changed my life because I was the catcher on that team, and Felipe loved having me behind the plate. He always talked about me controlling the game and handling the pitching staff, and that I was like another coach or manager out on that field. So I had him in my court, which was huge. Had a decent, really good defensive year that year. Offensively, same as usual, just whatever. But he loved me behind the plate. Well, wouldn't you know it, 3 years later, fast forward, and Felipe's the manager of the Montreal Expos, and I get the call from AAA Ottawa. And it obviously had a lot to do with my history with Felipe. He knew me very well by this time, knew what I could do, knew that he could throw me behind the plate in a tie game in the ninth inning in an NL pennant race if he wanted. And it happened. I got called up, and he's the manager of the National League style back then. Now that we have a DH in the National League starting this year, but we go back, and there are a lot of double switches, and he loved having me in there defensively. Darren Fletcher was the number one catcher. Oftentimes late in the game, they have to pinch run for him if it was close, and then I'd go into catch. So that happened a fair bit. So Felipe Alou, to this day, it changed my life. And of course, I can give myself a little credit because I could catch. That's why I got to the big leagues. But, a lot of times you need a break. And I think my break was that Felipe Alou was the manager because it could have been somebody else that, sure, they may have liked me as a catcher, but maybe didn't see me as that important or as that integral to possibly their success in behind the plate. Got the opportunity, and you look back now, parts of 4 seasons in the major leagues. I got back there a few more times, which was wonderful. Couldn't really stick, and most minor leaguers will tell you that the most difficult thing to do is to get to the big leagues, but even more difficult thing then is to stay there, and that's what I learned. But I certainly loved my 4 trips, and again, that's what given me the opportunity to now pursue this profession in broadcasting.
Well, it's a very small group of people that end up making it to the major leagues. We actually have a clip, Joe, from when you were called up to the big club with manager Felipe Alou. Vic, can you play that?
All of our goals to get to the big leagues, and it's finally happened. Now, hopefully I can get some playing time in and contribute in any way I can and be here for a long time.
To do this, you do a lot of without turning.
And there's Felipe. And how much did you learn from him, right?
Well, he was talking hitting there with our hitting coach, Tommy Harper. Poor Tommy spent hours with me in the cage. Don't know how much of it paid off, but Felipe was, what I learned a lot from Felipe was more about all of the intricacies of the game, the minutia of the game, things I love to talk about right now in our broadcast in providing insight and analyzing a game. I'll never forget to this day, and I've used this on the air. Felipe, we're in a spring training game, and I was catching in the big league game, and there was a hitter up for the Dodgers, and we bounced 2 breaking balls in a row, kind of in the dirt, and he chased them both. Counts 0-2. I thought, of course, I'm going to change it up, maybe go elevate a fastball or try to come in, and then I was thinking going back to that breaking ball. So I called the fastball in, and my pitcher left it right down the middle of the plate, and he wrapped it off the right center field wall for a double. So when I came in, Felipe he sat me down, and he told me clearly, when a hitter looks that bad on the same pitch twice, back to back, throw it again. Don't try to be tricky. He's clearly shown you that he's not seeing it well. He's not picking it up well. Throw it again. And I tell you, Joe, to this day, I have never forgotten it. The rest of my career, I never forgot it. And he was right. More times than not. And I guarantee you this year during the season, I'm going to bring this story up because somebody's going to bounce a couple breaking balls, and then the pitcher's going to try to get tricky and slide a fastball by him and get burned. Throw it again. So those are the things. That's just one tiny example of what Felipe did in terms of helping me evolve and develop, especially as a catcher calling a game.
Well, when you think about you're 0-2, You got the guy 0-2. If you throw another one and he doesn't chase it, well, then it's 1-2, and it's okay. It's still okay. Yep. And then you can go with the fastball, right? I mean, but at that particular time, right, you learn some good things there. We also have a picture of your baseball card. Tell us about this, Joe.
Oh, geez. Is that the best one you could find? That's my very
It's a baseball card that we found.
Holy cow. Jamestown Expos was my very first season. Went to spring training in '88, and then I went to extended spring where you go until the month of June, and then around mid-June after the draft, the short season Class A leagues started, and I was in Jamestown, New York, and there is that card. Oh, man, I was hoping they were like out of production by now. That's an oldie, but you know, it is memorable. It brings back a lot of memories because on that Expos team were some pretty good players. Marquise Grissom was on my first team there. Wilfredo Cordero, who went on to play for the Montreal Expos. So some pretty good talent on that club. Pretty good league to be introduced to professional baseball. But yeah, small towns and the bus rides that I was referring to, crazy. But great memories from that card.
Bull Durham in real life.
Yeah. Oh, that's a pretty good one because, I still look at that movie and laugh, and people say, oh, did you like it? I said, yeah. I mean, there were a lot of fun things in that movie that were fairly realistic. I had a teammate got married on the field one time. I remember some of the, you hear so many different minor league stories. And by the time I got to AAA, you get to know a lot of umpires who they come up through the minor leagues with you. And I'll never forget playing in Louisville one night. And I went out to talk to my pitcher, and I was talking about his grip and his release point and all this. And he comes, he says, hey, Sid, what are you, a pitching coach now? And I said, no, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. And all of the infielders and him, everybody's just lost it out on the mound. So, I mean, that's just one of those stories that a lot of fun things happen on a field, and especially in the minor leagues because, you get to the big leagues and everything's magnified. Everything's on TV, cameras everywhere. I always say you make a throwing error in the big leagues, it's going to be on the highlights across the nation that night, right? You do it in A-ball or AA, nobody really knows, so you just kind of keep going on. And that's part of the reason why it's difficult to continue moving up. But yeah, a lot of fun stories in the minor leagues. And again, as I said earlier, reflect back on some of those. I just wish I had a better memory because whenever I get back with some of the guys that I played with coming up in the minor leagues and they have good memories, it all starts coming back, and they've had me in stitches, just in tears, telling some of the stories. So those are good times.
Well, for sure, the getting together and reliving those memories. It's great that you don't have the good memories because when they bring it up, you get to relive it all over again. It's just like it was happening for the first time, right? So there you go. That's an asset, I guess. So after your playing career, you did some coaching. We got some video of you actually. Giving us some base running tips here. Tell us about your experience with the Canadian national team.
Yeah, well, I played with the Team Canada's youth team back when I was 17, and it's now called the Junior National Team. And just a wonderful program that Greg Hamilton and Baseball Canada runs. It's great for kids in our country. My son was able to play for the Junior National Team, played at the World Championships in Seoul, South Korea. And it's just an amazing program to prepare young players for whether they're going away maybe to college to play at the next level or if they sign professionally. And anytime you're playing on a world stage, that's great prep. So they had asked me to do some instructional videos here. These were a while ago, too. It looks like a long time ago. But if it can help coaches to teach kids, we always said we got to coach the coaches, right? I mean, if I'm going to teach somebody at something, I got to know what I'm teaching. So I would want to be well versed in that topic as well. So it was great. I was able to, when I finished playing, I retired in 2000 and I started working with the Tigers. I had a lot of offers to go and manage in the minor leagues or do different things. And I declined all of them because the whole reason why I finished playing and came home mid-season that year is because I was going home to be dad and be a husband and be with my family more. We had 4 children at the time. So that was like, what it ended up settling, I was about 2 years later because I had started going back to school part-time while I was doing the stay-home dad thing. But it was great because I was able to coach my kids' teams and be around a lot. But then the Tigers came back with another offer. They said, why don't you just come over and help out with batting practice over in Detroit? So again, 20 minutes from my house, just be for home games and just to be an extra hand. It's a good way to stay involved in the game. And I thought, that's pretty cool. I talked to my wife and thought that's a neat option. It's just for home games. It won't be traveling. Just go over in the afternoon from about 2 till usually get back at around 6 o'clock after batting practice to get to my kids' games and practices. So it was awesome, but I ended up doing it for 12 years. So I just kept doing it all throughout my years coaching kids' teams and doing that. And it worked out really well because how ironic things are. That's where I met Jerry Howarth, and that's, long story short, where my broadcasting career began, is when the Blue Jays were looking for a radio analyst for Jerry.
Well, before we get to the connection with Jerry, who had quite an interesting note on Facebook page, he said to Joe's the double play. He's looking forward to the show today. So yeah, shout out to Jerry. I want to talk about your kids a bit because you got some amazing kids. First of all, your son Brett, you mentioned first baseman outfielder at Buffalo's Canisius College, drafted by the Oakland A's. We got actually some video of Brett here. This is a walk-off homer where he's playing for the Lakeshore Chinooks.
Absolutely.
Hit to right, Knapp going back. Looks up, warning track, and that ball is up, and it is out of here. A walk-off home run for Brett Siddall, and the Chinooks have taken it 5-4 in the bottom of the ninth inning.
Are you kidding me, Matt Menzel? That's 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
Second time in franchise history, you say looking for a walk-off home run. It happens. Happy.
All right, there we go.
That's great.
So tell us about Brett and his career.
Well, he hit better than I did, as you can see. He came up through the Windsor Selects program also in Windsor. And yes, he got a scholarship to Canisius and had a good run there, obviously, and got drafted by the A's, as you noted. Played a few years in the minor leagues, and he's done now. He got to Double-A, which is a great accomplishment. And he is now living in Toronto and working. So he's doing very well. And I know he loved the game. I think he had a passion for the game. And I remember coaching him from a very young age. Just a very good player, a smart player. Just had a good left-handed swing. And he wasn't necessarily that sweet swinging, smooth left-handed swing, but he could hit. And he could really understand the concepts anytime we tried to teach all the different kids about the different concepts of hitting. And he could handle it. So a lot of fun. It's any parent would say it's always great fun to coach your kids. But when I look back, I was very fortunate to be able to do that. And he had a nice run and more importantly, doing well today.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. Now, your daughter, Brooke, she took the hockey route and was a goaltender for the University of Guelph Griffins. Tell us a little bit about Brooke.
Well, most of our kids, what we did is they pretty well played hockey in the winter and then baseball in the summer. Then, of course, they mixed all the other sports in at school, whether it's high school or elementary school. And yeah, she took to goaltending from a very young age. This is Mackenzie. This is my daughter at UBC. She played softball at UBC. Yes. And Brooke was a goalie at the University of Guelph. Mackenzie played softball at UBC. And obviously very active kids, athletic. They could do a lot of different things. And more importantly than anything, when I look back at their athletic performances, sports is just like it was for myself. And hopefully most people have positive experiences. Unfortunately, we know they're not always positive. But wow, my kids had wonderful positive experiences with sport, coaches, teammates, and all of the other things that it certainly helps you in your everyday life. And I think they all benefited in so many ways throughout their sporting careers.
Right. And I wanted to mention Mackenzie being born without a right hand, and she was an outfielder who could, pitch and obviously catch, field, hit. I mean, she was a tremendous athlete. That's pretty cool thing. Now, your youngest son, Kevin, you and I have something in common here. We're one of those group of people that have unfortunately experienced the loss of a child. We lost Spencer when he was 25, 7 years ago now, and not an easy thing to do. But tell us a little bit about Kevin and that experience of, we lost him with cancer. I understand. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Kev was the youngest of our four, certainly beloved by his two sisters and brother, as you can imagine. I mean, for his sisters, it was their baby brother. And for Brett, it was his only brother, his best bud. And he was sick. He was 14 years old. And it was weird because we were playing baseball. He was at a baseball game one night and he was running the bases and he was getting very congested. I'm coaching third base. And I think he came around second to third. He was just really breathing heavy and huffing and puffing. I said, "You all right?" Yeah, I'm fine, I'm fine. And then a couple innings passed, and he comes up to bat again, and he had a hit, and he's running the bases again, same thing. And I remember it was a game on like a Wednesday or Thursday, and we were going away for the weekend for a tournament. So I was trying to get all of my kids to pitch an inning and try to get everybody a little bit of work. And when I asked him, it was like the last sixth or seventh inning he was going to pitch, and he said, "No, I'm okay." And I thought, that's really weird because of course he would want to. So we got home, and my wife is a physician, so I mentioned it to her, and it was just kind of a croupy type cough. Well, long story short, take him into the hospital, and they're sending him to London right away, and he's got a huge mass on his chest. It's a tumor, and it's cancerous, and he's intubated, and it was the most horrific thing, and as you obviously know, Joe, any parent can ever go through, probably because you can't do anything to help them. And you're seeing what they're going through. First rounds of chemo helped, shrunk the tumor, and thought, okay, the prognosis was supposed to be somewhat okay. But then as we continued on, it got worse, very aggressive, and long story short, 6 months, Kev was gone. And yeah, horrific. I don't know how else to explain it, other than that it's clearly changed our lives as a family, both my wife Tamara and I, and the kids, and all four of them, two girls, Brad and Tamara, have been my rock. And you need that. I have that. And we've spun it. We've spun it to be grateful for the time that we had Kevin. And I say spin it because that's what I do. I spin it and pretend. You got to pretend in life. And I got to pretend that, yep, we're just grateful for the time we had. And because you can't go down the other avenue, I can't. I know it would lead to terrible places, and I'm sure it does for some people, and that's a horrible thing. But I've got kids that are just, oh my gosh, they're just everything in our lives. And, I feel like our kids are still like 5-year-olds because we just want to be with them and we want to know they're okay. And we're not, it's just, but they've been rocks. And, they're very positive. My daughter Mackenzie there has her own brand. It's called AOG, Attitude of Gratitude. And she just continues to harp on it. And it's a wonderful thing because it's a way of moving forward, because we have to move forward, right? We can't stay where we were. And terrible things happen to a lot of people. And we saw that in the hospital for 6 months. It wasn't just us. And we continue. And I'm sure anybody watching this, Joe, every single person around us has been impacted by tragedy or loss of some sort. Maybe not to the same degree, but of some sort. And the most important thing I've learned from my kids and from my wife is to be grateful and to move forward and be positive. And that's what we try to do every day, because we were lucky to have Kev.
Yeah, and it's, putting one foot in front of the other and getting through it one day at a time. And after a period of time, you realize that there has been a period of time has gone by, and you did get through it. And for us, getting in touch with bereaved families of Ontario was a key for us and very helpful. But you're right, gratitude is so important. Is being grateful for what you do have and what there is. And we still experience Spencer in different ways. Like he manifests himself in different ways to us, and there's all kinds of cool signs. We could go into that. I could definitely do a whole show on that, really. But I think I guess the message for anybody who has gone through that kind of loss is that you can get through it. You will get through it one day at a time, and you'll be so grateful that you did, that you have been able to be there for each other, support as a family, support each other and getting through this. And, my kids are doing amazing, and Spencer's doing him, he is where he is, and he helps me in some ways too. So a lot of ways for sure. And so let's talk about becoming an analyst with the Blue Jays and how that came about.
It's a great story, Joe. It's I wish I could give all the detail, but I take an hour and a half. But long story, somewhat short. We'll try to abbreviate a bit for you. But so Kevin, we just went through the funeral. It was probably about a week later, and I had met Jerry Howarth on the field at Comerica Park working for the Tigers. And Jerry knew who I was because I was Canadian and I played professional baseball, got to the big leagues. And I knew Jerry just because I knew he was the legendary voice of the Blue Jays. But I would see him on the field, quick hello, how are you? Great. And that was about it. So he knew who I was. I knew who he was. But out of the blue, it's a week after our funeral, and I get an email from Jerry. And it's just an email of condolences. So sorry for your loss. And said, look forward to seeing you. And we're in Detroit next year, because I would see him down on the field. So I replied to him and just said, thanks so much, very kind of you. And I wish I could remember the exact words, but I remember just saying, like, thanks so much. And at the end of the email, and I said, look forward to seeing you too. And I said, or maybe in the broadcast booth one day. I made a comment like that. And I still to this day, like it wasn't anything to do with broadcasting. It's just because Jerry was a broadcaster and I was just being goofy, I think. I don't know why I wrote what I wrote. I don't even know what I wrote, but it was something along those lines or typed. And he replied to that email. And I do remember it being like immediate. I think it was like in a minute. And it said, how about right now? I think I'm reading this email. I was in my kitchen right here. My wife, we were in a fog, right? We're still. And I'm reading this, and I think he went on to kind of say how they were actually, Jack Morris had just left the radio booth in like January. So this is mid-February and or early February. And he, I think they were going through the process of hiring an analyst. And he said, how about right now? As in like throw my hat in the ring. And I remember looking at my wife saying, I might have like a job opportunity. And I think she looked at me like, what are you talking about? So back and forth with the emails. And then Jerry puts me in contact with Don Collins, the program director for 590 The Fan, and said that, he's away or whatever. He'll give me a call over the weekend or Monday morning, whatever. So sure enough, Monday morning, my phone rings. And, back in the day, we have got a home phone and the display says Sportsnet or 590 The Fan or something. And it's Don Collins. And I'm thinking, okay. So he proceeded. We talked probably for about a half hour. And by the end of the phone call, Don was just so kind and nice and hearing about our story. And we're talking mostly about what we just went through. And by the end of the phone call, he said, Joe, I think right now you've got a lot on your plate. Why don't you just be home with your family where you need to be? And, maybe one time throughout the summer, we'll bring you up to Toronto, come with your wife, maybe we'll show you the studios, show you how things work, and just kind of introduce you to it. And I said, yeah, sounds good. Well, then he called back a few days later and he said, would you be interested in doing like some games or like auditioning or coming on our show? So I went on with Jeff Blair, and I think they just wanted to hear me. Yeah. So of course I'm going on the show thinking I'm not really a Blue Jays fan. I'm a Tigers fan. So I better get a little well-versed on the Blue Jays here. I remember scrambling, going to the websites. And so I go on with Blair. And now I knew Jeff from our Montreal days. He was a writer for the Gazette in Montreal when I played there. So I knew Jeff. That helped a little bit. And anyway, it went well. Probably a 10-minute interview, went well. And afterwards, that's where Don was kind of like pursuing it, called me again and said, well, do you want to, maybe we'd like you to come to Florida and maybe do a few games. I'm like, okay. So I'm talking to my wife. I'm like, what do you think of this? She's like, I think we're both like rolling our eyes, like, what's going on here? So can you come to Florida to do a few games? Sure. So how long should I pack for? Just, for a few games or whatever. So then it was going to be, I think it was maybe like a week from then I was going to go down because, spring training's around the corner. Well, he calls back. He says, any chance you could get on a plane Wednesday? Or it was like a day or two from the time he called. I'm thinking, sure, I guess. Why not? Yeah. So by this time, I think too, these were lots of calls back and forth. And I think by this time I said, you know what? I'm diving headfirst into this thing. I mean, we already had that. Like I said, we were in a fog, probably not thinking straight. But I think I remember to myself just saying, you know what, I'm just going to dive headfirst into this thing and say, yes, I'm available. I'll be there for anything you want, whatever. So I think I remember telling him, finally, one of our phone calls, I said, like, yes, I can come to Florida. I can stay the whole spring if you want. And if I'm hired, I can do the full 162 if you want. Like, I'm in. Let me know what you need. Anyway, so again, here's my long story of trying to get a little shorter. I go down to Florida. First game I'm doing with Jerry, it's in Clearwater against the Phillies. Blue Jays take batting practice on their field in Dunedin. And Jerry's walking down the right field line with me and basically in about 15 or 20 minutes, giving me the broadcasting 101. And oh my God, it was probably the best 20 minutes of my broadcasting career because sure, I knew I was confident and comfortable with my insight and analysis of baseball. I know the game, but broadcasting, like all the broadcasting tricks, when to come in with your comment, when to get out, make sure you allow him to call the pitch, all these things in radio that you have to be aware of. So he gave me the best lesson in broadcasting in about 20 minutes. It was unbelievable. So we go do the game. And I mean, to this day, I can't imagine listening back to that game, but hopefully I'm much improved now. But the game went well. I thought it went well. Did it again the next day. And after the game, Don gives me a call and he said, I'd like to meet you for dinner. And I was offered the job. So long story short, it came together really fast. But again, to this day, because of Jerry being such a kind human being that he is and reaches out to this basically stranger to offer his condolences, who would have ever thought that it would lead to what it led to? And I tell you, those 4 years on the radio with Jerry, I mean, there's nobody better. And what he did as a mentor to me, I mean, he taught me all the broadcasting tricks early on. Once I got pretty well versed in that stuff, then he was on to my grammar, and he was on to the way you describe things and speaking properly. I'll never forget, not there's 2 outs. There are 2 outs. You know, those sorts of things. That, I did okay in school. My grammar's okay, but we could always be better. So just to be a little bit more articulate and attention to detail. And he always felt that I started at a pretty high level and that I can only go higher. So yeah, forever grateful to Jerry for the opportunity, first of all, just to get into broadcasting, because crazy how that happened. But then for his mentorship for 4 years on the radio. I mean, to this day, I say the best training ground for what I do now, or for even the TV work that I was doing, is being on radio. Because you're not on camera, you can pay attention to other details. You can talk about an entire at bat over the course of the inning. You can talk. Whereas TV, it's very time sensitive. You have to, we got to come in and get out in 30 seconds, or there are certainly things like that. So it was a great training ground, because if I ever went in for a TV job first, I'm like, wow, that's a lot. There's a lot going on there. So yes, once again, forever grateful to Jerry.
What a great mentor. What a great guy. And Jerry, Mary, his family, they're amazing people. And just hello, friends. I didn't miss him on the radio for sure. Swing and a miss. He struck him out. Going. There she goes. Yeah. Anyway, loved Jerry. And we had a show and he talked about his new book. I highly recommend it. It's beautiful, wonderful book. Hello, friends, I think is the main title. So let's talk about the Blue Jays. And I guess the first thing I want to talk about is just a quick look back at 2021. What a crazy season. I mean, it started in Dunedin, went to Buffalo. Was there a period in Tampa there for a little while, if I'm not mistaken? I can't remember, but they were all over the place, and yet they almost made the playoffs.
Yeah, Dunedin, Buffalo, and then Toronto, and it was a tough go for any player, because they basically didn't have a home until they finally got to Toronto, and then they didn't even have full capacity fans. So talk about a huge competitive disadvantage. Now, did they complain about it? No, of course not. And that was Charlie's mandate from the beginning. They just went about their business and did what they had to do. I'm sure the hitters could benefit from those ballparks, and probably did. But hey, any player will tell you they want to play in front of their home fans. And that's why Friday night's going to be so special. A packed house. A lot of these players haven't had this. They haven't had it yet in their young careers. So it's going to be very special. Huge disadvantage. And then they made a great run last year. And I think what happens when you do these things, it's like in the pandemic shortened season. They snuck into the playoffs. I don't think it was expected. But then your expectations raised a little bit. And then last year, things got off the rails early. They're having all those bullpen issues. They tried to rectify things. Of course, one of the best lineups in baseball. As it turns out, a little bit too short. They came up a little bit short. So now, if I were to just fast forward, even if you went back with the same team, now you lost a couple of key contributors in your Cy Young pitcher, Robbie Ray and Simeon, even Matt's for that matter. But even if you went back with the same team to play all of your home games in Toronto in front of your home fans, hopefully big houses every night, that's going to help tremendously. But they went out and tried to replenish, right? I mean, you lose Robbie Ray, but now Barrios is signed long-term. That's a wonderful thing. You sign Gosman. He's here for a while. And that's what I love about this rotation. These guys are here for a while. I mean, you're talking about Barrios, Gosman, and Manoah for a while. That's a pretty good thing. And now Kikuchi for 3 years. We'll see what happens with him. And I think they're taking a run with Kikuchi. He's had great success at times, and other times not so much. So you're not necessarily sure what you're going to get there. And Ryu's aging. We know that. But we knew that when he was signed here, that you hope to get 2+ good years out of him. And they kind of did. So you hope that he's still got a little magic left. But that's just the way this team is. And you look around when they acquired Matt Chapman in spring training, I thought that was a huge, huge signing, because that third base was a big hole for the Blue Jays last year, especially defensively. And that's a critical position for their pitching staff. They got a lot of ground balls over there. And we know, especially Ryu and Kikuchi, get a lot of those over there. So Chapman could improve that greatly. and how much he maybe even improves Bo at shortstop because he can cover so much ground at short. That'll help a lot. So a lot of positives. There is no question. There are tons of positives. And then I'm probably like a manager. I have that cautious optimism because you just never know. Like the outfield defense can still be an issue. We know that. Traded away Grichuk, who was probably one of the better outfielders. So now you've got Tapia, who hopefully can fill in. But, there are days there are going to be Gurriel, Springer's not getting younger, and Teoscar out there. And that's, that can go sideways in a hurry. And I say that because, in the infield, when you make errors or you don't make plays, oftentimes we say that costs a base. But in the outfield, it usually costs you runs, and that hurts. So hopefully the infield defense is shored up so much and helps the pitching staff. But the lineup certainly should hit. I mean, my goodness, one of the best lineups in baseball for sure. But you look around this division, and it's always that. We have this discussion every year, the AL East. But I think this year it may have taken it to another level because this division should probably be as tight as ever with the Yankees, Red Sox, and Rays. Orioles aren't there yet, obviously, but these four teams, my goodness, and they're just going to be beating each other up all season long.
Well, it's interesting that the Jays are considered to be the favorites from the odds makers, and it's been a while since we could say that. You talked about Chapman. I mean, his defensive numbers are through the roof. Like he's, his WAR numbers are crazy, and he's going to provide that defense. I think offensively, he's kind of had some kind of like an off year last year, although he does still have his pop. But I'm thinking that could probably turn around a little bit for him, hitting in a lineup with that much protection, right? But they're going to have to pitch to this guy, and then Springer having him healthy for a whole year. I mean, what kind of difference is that going to make? Presumably.
Well, that makes all the difference. Yeah, it makes all the difference in the world. But, and, any team and every manager, I'm sure Aaron Boone is saying the same thing right now in New York, that they got to stay healthy. And my goodness, you keep George Springer on the field for 150 games, you are off to the races. He is something special, even just as bat in the lineup, even if he has to DH a bit. But I think when you look at what Chapman did too, I think that could be a sneaky, big offensive improvement. I'm really looking forward because you look at what he's done in the past, and he's hit. He has hit, and he had hip surgery a couple years ago. So he's having surgery. He comes back last year, and I think, I had a chat with him in spring training down in Dunedin just a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about that. It's like you're healed because of the surgery, but as we know, when you come back from surgery, a lot of the focus is on getting better, rehabbing and getting better. Didn't have that full rehab to get better to go into that season. So he was still favoring it a bit, I think, at times. And when you start favoring things as a hitter, especially bottom half, big trouble. You are in big trouble. And he admitted to that. He admitted that he was surgically repaired and healed, but not 100%. So I think now when you get that full strength, he's had that entire offseason now, this past offseason, to get strong. He looks like he's got a much more solid foundation, solid base. And any hitter will tell you, from the hips down, the legs get you in position to do everything. And if you can't load in that backside, guess what you have to do? You have to compensate. You have to cheat. And that's what he did a lot of last year because he had to. It just wasn't quite 100% back yet in terms of strength. So now he feels that he is. And I think that we talk so much about all the great hitters in this lineup that we're not talking about Chapman much. And that's great because he can go ahead and hit sixth if he wants, because in this lineup, he doesn't have to hit up there. So he could be a sneaky, I think, key contributor to extend this lineup.
Was there any chance they were going to keep Semien? I mean, obviously he wanted to be at short, and there's no chance he's going to continue on at second.
Never mind short. Would you have given him that kind of money? I wouldn't have. He got a crazy contract from the Texas Rangers, and I wouldn't do it. I mean, he's over 30 now. Those contracts are bad, and I think you can watch that contract closely, and I'm sure it's going to end up very bad. I know fans, they see Semien, we got to get Semien back. We got to get Semien back. And I was thinking, no, somebody's going to give him crazy money and crazy years because of the year he had, and good for him. But I wouldn't do it if I was the Blue Jays. There's no way. I wouldn't shore up that kind of money or use that kind of money when you're maybe thinking of Bo and Vladdy moving forward to extensions or whatever. So, yeah, it's unfortunate. It was a great year for Semien because he got himself paid, but it was also a great year for Semien and the Blue Jays. It was a win-win, and you just can't have it all. But good for him. I don't think he's necessarily going to care about playing shortstop anymore because he got an awful lot of money to play second base Friday night for the Rangers because he's got a guy by the name of Mr. Seager that'll be playing short.
Right. So now, we talked about that rotation. Stunning, awesome rotation. Are you surprised about the Barrios signing? A, that the Jays would part with that much money, and B, that he would sign here and stay here and choose to stay here.
No and no. Not surprised at all, Joe. And you know why? When they acquired him, we hear players get acquired at deadlines, and they hope to sign him to an extension. I honestly was thinking, wow, Barrios, I think he's the kind of guy, finish strong and, enter free agency and probably break the bank. But this team, we keep hearing it from players, keep hearing about the people. We heard David Phelps talk on the broadcast the other day. The reason he's back, the people, the organization, the team, the people he's working with. Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins, they have created something here, and we've heard that word culture so much, but they have created something here that every player keeps talking about, and it's obviously special. Does it mean you're going to win the World Series? No, but they're creating an environment where people want to be. And for Barrios, first of all, he's getting paid handsomely. That's wonderful, but he wanted to be here. And maybe it's got a little to do with the manager and Charlie Montoya, fellow Puerto Rican, right? I mean, who knows? But it didn't surprise me that they extended him because this is a good pitcher. He might not be your Max Scherzer or DeGrom or Cole, your ace, so to speak, or one of the tops in the league. But this guy, year in and year out, is just a solid, very good performer. Probably like a number 2. On a bad day, he might be a number 3 starter. And those guys are hard to find. So when you can find them and pay them and keep them, that's a great thing. And moving forward, that's a great anchor to have in your rotation. He's the kind of guy that when you look at his career, he's been a very good, solid major leaguer his whole time. So that's reliable. You know what you're getting from him, assuming he doesn't fall back at all. But that's stability. And that's what the Blue Jays certainly are hoping to get in Gausman, too, by signing him to 5 years.
Right. And Barrios also, he's a 2-time All-Star. Twice he's been the Twins opening day starter. So, he's a guy who, it's not like he's come out of nowhere and made a name for himself. He's a guy who they're going to rely on. And really, everything we've seen from him so far indicates that he's going to be worth that money. It looks like the Jays are going to have a 10-man bullpen to start the season. Good idea? Bad idea? What do you think? I mean, they've got the numbers.
I think.
Yeah, well, the league. Major League Baseball has allowed you to have more players. They've upped the numbers for beginning of the season anyway because of shortened spring training.
Yeah, and I think a lot of teams will do the same thing because of the shortened spring training. And, we're starting to see more and more pitchers built up and, getting up to 80, 90 pitches maybe by the time they leave spring training this week. But I think there's still that fear. What if a starting pitcher goes 2 1/3? I mean, there are going to be a lot of innings to cover. And even when pitchers are pitching well, they might go 5 or 6. We still have those few innings to cover. So I think it's that nice security blanket for the first couple of weeks of the season. I think it's a great idea by Major League Baseball to do it. And it's probably an even better idea by teams to add in the pitching department because, pitching is, every manager will tell you never have enough pitching. And remember, when the opening day roster is announced, that's very temporary because things happen fast with injuries or illness, whatever the case may be. So I think it's going to be interesting, though, to see what happens with the Blue Jays down the stretch here, only because we're hearing that Nate Pearson is under the weather and might not be available for opening day. Ryan Borucki had a hamstring issue. So if those guys aren't available, they were 2 potential guys to be on the club. That's going to open up opportunities for other guys at the back end of the bullpen.
Where do you see Nate Pearson down the road? You think he's going to be a bullpen guy? You think he's going to be the Tom Hankey type of guy? Is he going to be the starter, which is what they intended for him originally?
I would love to see him be a starter because, as I mentioned with Barrios, it's very hard to find really good high-end starting pitching, and Nate's got great stuff, right? He's got an electric arm, but we've seen it come together at times, but not very consistently. And in his defense, he hasn't pitched a ton in his career because of injuries. He's had a lot of setbacks, and that's very frustrating, I'm sure. I would love to see him be a starting pitcher or get that opportunity only because of the stuff. But at the same time, this is no longer a Blue Jays team that's rebuilding. This is a team that's built to win a World Series right now. and you don't have time for that. They have a rotation that they won't need that. I do think with the situation that they're in right now, if he was the Ross Stripling type and he's in the bullpen and can give you multiple innings, give you some length, give you 2 and 3 innings at a time, and then that maybe positions him to make a spot start when needed. Maybe Ryu needs that extra day of rest, which we know serves him well later in his career here. So doubleheaders will pop up. Maybe Nate can come and give you 3 or 4 to start a doubleheader, that sort of thing. I love that. I think when you're exploring someone or trying to make them, I love that. I have no problem with them getting their feet wet in the big leagues out of the bullpen. But with that stuff and the 4 pitches, you want to explore every possibility of him being a starting pitcher before saying you're now in the bullpen for the rest of your career. And I don't think Blue Jays are saying that at all. But I just, that starting pitcher thing, you don't get guys that throw in the upper 90s with a couple breaking pitches and a changeup very often. And if that ever kind of came to fruition as a starting pitcher, wow, you might have something really special. Again, the problem is I can talk like that all I want. Unfortunately, Nate has not put it all together. And whether it's injuries, inconsistencies, whatever the case may be, but I do see him in the present this year could certainly help out of the bullpen as that high velocity arm and maybe even getting more than 3 outs at a time.
They had to deal away some picks to make, in recent deals. Are the cupboards bare, or is there more pieces left here for them to make any deals?
Oh, there are a lot of pieces, Joe. I was down in spring training, and it was unbelievable. Buck and I on the broadcast a couple of times, they just keep bringing these kids into the game. And it used to be, I think Buck commented on this one on the broadcast. It used to be, you bring in all these number 87s in the end of a spring training game, and they're just whoever, whatever. Now it's like you're watching going, whoa, these are good players. And I think what the Blue Jays have done, again, this goes back to what we've heard Mark Shapiro talk about years ago. You have to build that farm system, which they've done. And you know what happens when you build that farm system? Some of those kids come up and contribute, and they're impactful with your major league club. The other ones you use in trade to acquire. And look what they did. They used a couple to acquire Jose Barrios. He is now going to be a Blue Jay for a long, long time, and hopefully a really good one. They did the same thing with Chapman. You give up pieces from your farm system to acquire major league talent when your team is ready to win now. And that's exactly what they've done. It's a perfect formula. You definitely want to stock your farm system so that, hey, it's pretty nice when you have a Bo Bichette and a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. come up from your farm system. These are star players. That's not very easy to do. But when you do that, now you complement the youth and your homegrown kids by going out and complementing with free agents like a Gosman, but then you give up some of your pieces to acquire like a Barrios and to acquire guys like Chapman. So that's what when you have money, you can go sign George Springer. That's awesome. But what you're seeing the Blue Jays do now, they've got it all together. Homegrown, go out and sprinkle with free agents and use some of your prospects because you're done so well with your farm system to acquire major leaguers. So they've done it all, and this roster is constructed that way.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting when you talk about the way they built it, the way they've brought the kid up, and Vlad Guerrero now he's a fixture first. We know that. That's cool. I loved his line recently. Last year we saw the trailer. Now we're going to see the movie.
Great, love it. I hope he's right.
Yeah, I hope he's right too. Your co-host on the broadcast, Jamie Campbell. I know he's going through an issue right now. He said he's being treated for leukemia. He intends to be there opening day. Just wanted to say, Joe, I want to ask, how's Jamie doing and with his in his journey?
From what I understand, he is doing okay. He's begun some treatments. I know as of a few days ago, he plans to be there right beside me opening day. I hope that remains true as long as he is feeling well, but I'm sure it'll be based a lot on that, how he's feeling. And I'm certainly thinking about Jamie lots these days. Yes, we've talked about illness, and that was a tough one. It's anytime someone close to you hear that news, it's sad, but we're hoping he can continue to do what's required and that things work for him.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing both you guys on opening day, right? And we're looking forward to seeing lots of Jamie in the upcoming season, and tell him that we're wishing all the best, and our thoughts and prayers are with him for sure. And I guess your overall thoughts, if you wanted to pick how the AL East is going to look this year, what's your feeling, and how do you think the division will look this year? I'm top to bottom.
Well, predictions are so fun, right? I think it's going to be so tight that I'm waiting for the Tampa Bay Rays to not be the Tampa Bay Rays. But every year I say this, they're the Tampa Bay Rays and they compete. I'm going to say this is the year they slide down a bit. They were a great offense last year, and they're all about run prevention, and we hear of the Tampa Bay Ray way all the time. But I say down go the Rays. So let's bump them down to third.
Yeah.
I'll go Blue Jays, Yankees, Rays, Red Sox, Orioles. You got that record.
Yes, I think that sounds good. I'm all about that. Yeah, I like the Jays on top for sure. No question about it. Just the vibe around this team is just phenomenal, and everything that they're doing. They've done a phenomenal job. And Joe, so have you. And you had a great mentor in Jerry Howarth, and you learned the gig well in a very short period of time, and you do a bang up job. And we're just we're so happy to have you on here. I want to thank you for taking the time to join us with the season just around the corner. It's great. As a guest on Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show, we've got some great clothing for you from Classica Imports. We're going to hook you up with Jeff at Classica, and he'll hook you up next time you're in town, which won't be very long. And thanks for being here.
Hey, Joe, much appreciated. It's been a lot of fun, and anytime we can talk baseball, I'm in.
All right, buddy. Thank you. All right, more sports when we come back.
Take care.
More Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show coming up after the break.
Hughes on it for Marner. On the backhand across. Matthews scores. He has tied the Maple Leafs single-season goal-scoring record.
Guests on Joe Tilley Sports receive a gift certificate from Classica Imports. Top of the line imported men's clothing. Check out the Classica Essential Collection now. Go to shopclassica.com.
Hey, this is Tommy Graisley, aka Tommy Gunn. I love two things, music and sports. And when I want sports, I go to the Joe Tilley Show. He gives me everything I want. It's a great show. Check it out for yourself. Joe Tilley Sports, coming up.
Good night. When I'm working out, I like to wear my Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show t-shirt. It makes me feel handsome and strong. If you want a t-shirt, support the show, click on the link below. Now, back to my workout. 1,761, 1,762, 1,763, 1,764. Addiction Rehab Toronto, Toronto's #1 alcohol and drug treatment center, saving lives, reuniting families. The only treatment center in the province to offer medical detox, treatment, sober living, and lifetime aftercare all in one place. Our unique and specialized programs are designed to equip our clients with the tools to successfully lead a life of dignity, respect, and purpose. Let us help save your life or your loved one's life. Call today for more information or to facilitate an intervention. 1-855-787-2424 or visit addictionrehabtoronto.ca. Joe Tilley Sports is brought to you by COSA, Central Ontario Standardbred Association, providing a united voice for harness horse people racing at Ontario tracks. Check out your benefits today at COSAonline.com and check out COSA TV on Facebook and YouTube for all the latest harness news and live action updates. Live racing year-round. Go to hpibet.com for all your wagering options. Become a member today, and your first bet is free. That's hpibet.com. Slow play. It's a slippery slope. First you go looking for that lost ball, and then everything goes sideways. There are a lot of golfers on the course. Make certain of your point of entry, look quickly, and move on. Remember, we're here for a good time, not a long time. Find anything, Bob?
Not yet.
Visit moregolf.ca. You'll find everything a golfer could need, from balls, gloves, and clubs, to custom fitting opportunities, training gear, and more. When you go to moregolf.ca to log in and make your final purchase, don't forget to enter promo code JTSports to get $20 off. Go to moregolf.ca today.
Yes, it's time for my Costa Swiss pick of the week. Last week, I went out to Western Fair Raceway in London for Tuesday night's second race. I took Homie Joe for obvious reasons. He was in contention early, but as he pulled into the stretch, Outlaw grabbing gears, owned and trained and driven by Paul Davies, took control at 5-1, holding on for the win. Homie Joe at 15-1, faded to the back of the pack. This week, I'm going to Western Fair Raceway again for Wednesday night's fifth race, and I like Miss Rockadally coming off an impressive wire-to-wire win last week. Tyler Borth in the buggy, owned and trained by Cliff McGuire. I'm also taking the 2-3-4 Exacta box. For all the racing updates, visit Costa TV on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Go to hpibet.com for your wagering options. Time now for the Rycom Wrap. Sports news that's close to home. Well, they're probably not going to win the Atlantic Division, but the Leafs are showing some very positive signs as they head towards the playoffs. Jack Campbell returned from that rib injury, had a solid game against the Flyers in Philly, followed by a fabulous effort in Tampa. And what can you say about Austin Matthews? Despite missing a couple games with that suspension, AIM is going to run away with the team record for most goals in the season. A hattie against the rival Lightning in Tampa. Huge win. Solidifies their hold on second in the division. Anytime you bounce the defending champs 6-2, it's awesome. Mitch Marner is an elite playmaker who finds ways to impress the hell out of me every time he plays. That extra home date in the opening round could be key. Let's see what they can do when it matters. Should be a fun run. Well, Kyle Lowry is back in his old stomping grounds. The Bulldog got a rousing ovation from the folks at Scotiabank Arena. For lots of love for the Raps' all-time greatest player. Fred VanVleet took the opportunity to break Kyle's record for most made three-pointers in a season. Freddie with 29 points. Pascal Siakam also had 29, but the Raps let this slip away late. Lowry with 16 points, 10 assists in his return to lead the Heat to that 114-109 victory. The Raps are on the verge of wrapping up a spot in the first round, avoiding a play-in scenario. Well, I guess the Jays are pretty happy with the work of Charlie Montoyo. They've given their manager a new contract extension through the 2023 season with club options for the following 2 years. Jays made the playoffs in their second year under Charlie, very close last year, and they are favored to win the AL East this time around. An exciting young group that seems to be progressing very nicely. Toronto FC has moved back to the 500 mark thanks to a 2-1 win over New York City FC. The Reds have 2 wins, 2 losses, and a draw. They're in Salt Lake City this week. Productive weekend for the Toronto Rock. Friday night, they sauntered into Georgia, where they handed the Swarm a 13-9 setback. Then they hopped on a plane and flew right back home for a Saturday night date with the San Diego Seals. What a night for Dan Craig. The 28-year-old forward had a career-high 6 goals, including 4 in the fourth quarter to put this game on ice. Teammate Tom Schreiber had 6 assists as the Rock pasted the Seals 14-7. That pushes the Rock into sole possession of second spot in the very competitive NLL East at 10-5. They'll be in Rochester next Saturday night for a date with the Nighthawks. Let's hear it for Canada's Adam Hadwin. 4th place finish at the Valero Texas Open. Let's hope that Corey Connors can get it going at Augusta, maybe Mac Hughes as well. All right, here's our shot of the week, number 17 at El Tigre.
God
Four!
Probably the same result. Yeah, they might be the same anyway, right? Tilley on the tee. Par 3 17th. Large audience of ducks. There's a swing. Oh, we knew the camera was watching, but he's safe. Chip and a putt. No sand.
Tigre, Nuevo Vallarta. He hits it. He's quiet. Good sign. Oh, he's in the bunker. Much better than the water.
Today's environmental tip: plant a tree. Trees produce oxygen and improve air quality. Trees take in carbon dioxide and store harmful carbon. Trees prevent soil erosion and help lessen flooding. Trees lower temperature by providing shade and cooling water evaporation.
RICOM, passionate people who turn complicated business problems into simplified technology solutions. For public and private sector real estate, properties, portfolios, and enterprise customers. Optimize and future-proof smart buildings from the ground up. Smart Tech Solutions, the latest in fault locating, base building network design, managed services, cybersecurity, data analytics. Our fault detection will support all smart strategies, define projected outcomes for capital planning, and reduce environmental impact. RICOM, Smart Protection Solutions. At RICOM, we're building a path to a smart and environmentally friendly future and a carbon-free economy.
Well, I want to thank all the folks who make this show possible, these friends, trusted business associates, and all-around great folks. We highly recommend them all. Reminder that the show is available on iTunes, Spotify, Breaker, Radio Public, Google Podcast, and Pocket Cast, as well as a Spanglish Network and Zingo TV. Also, please like and subscribe to the show on YouTube. It's free. You can check out all of our past great shows and clips on there. Thanks once again to Joe Siddall for being on the show. It's great to have him talking some baseball. Thank you for watching. Join us next week when golf guru Todd Kierstead drops by for some golf tips and shots and golf information. We'll see you then.
Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show is brought to you by
Brian Gribben Insurance Planning, helping you solidify your financial future.
At BGIP, what we do that's unique in the marketplace is we show people how to spend and enjoy their money in their early years of retirement without the fear of running out. Also, we're able to do this without you having to change financial advisors. Please look us up at bgip.ca today, and let's book a 30-minute phone call to see how we can bring value to you and your family in your planning.
Call Brian today for all your retirement needs. We did. 905-686-5678.
Do you want to buy or sell a home? Could 31 years of real estate experience help you? Why not speak to an amazing team that loves to overpromise and overdeliver? Aldo has a tremendous team of experts on staff. They are committed to making your next real estate transaction smooth and comfortable. Call 416-GET-ALDO or visit getaldo.com.
Brought to you by MNP, a leading Canadian national accounting, tax, and business consulting firm. MNP proudly serves and responds to the needs of our clients in the private, public, and non-for-profit sectors. Through partner-led engagements, MNP provides a collaborative, cost-effective approach to doing business and personalized strategies to help people and organizations succeed across the country and around the world. With local offices in Oshawa, Toronto, Mississauga, Burlington, and more, our team is here to support you. Visit mnp.ca to learn more.